Hi, fifth graders. For fluency for today, we're going to do an activity called Find the Midpoint. I'd like you to have out your whiteboard and marker, and you can solve along with me on there. So in Find the Midpoint, I'm going to show you a number line like this, and I've written it two different ways for you. So at the top, I have just the standard number, 0 and 10. You could also think of these numbers as 0 ones or 10 ones. If you have 10 $1 bills, you'd have $10. So a couple of different ways you can think about it. In this activity, you want to find the midpoint. The midpoint is what would be in the middle of these two numbers. So we start off with something pretty easy, 0 and 10. What would be the middle of that? If you need to, you could use your hands. Hands are great in math. So 10, I have my 10 fingers up. How can I split this into two parts? Here and here. What would be the middle then? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is in between 0 and 10. Let's get a little more complicated. This time, let's use the numbers 0 and 1. Are there any whole numbers in between 0 and 1? There aren't. So this is when thinking of it in terms of the unit could be helpful. So I'm actually going to rewrite these over here because I find seeing them next to each other helpful. So I'm trying to figure out what's between 0 and 1. There's nothing in between those right now. So I'm going to add the decimal point. It was there before, it's just invisible. And what I'm going to do is bring it over another place value. So I'm going to add a 0 to the end of these. Now it's easier to see that there are numbers in between here. So this is showing 0 tenths. This is showing 10 tenths. If I just ignore the place value, think of it as 0 and 10. What was between 0 and 10 again? 5. So in this case, it would be 5 tenths, not just a normal 5. So if it was 0 and 5, what's in between here would be 5. I can't put the 5 in the ones place because that would look like 50. So in between is 5 tenths. Let's keep going. It'll get easier the more we do. So now I'm going in between 0 and 1 tenth. So I'm going to write them over here. 0 and 1 tenth. I want you to write them with me. I think it's kind of almost easier if you ignore the decimal right now. So this number is just 0, 0, 0. 0, 1 would just be 1. Is there anything between 0 and 1? If the answer is no, my trick before was add a 0 to these. Now I have 0 and 10. Is there anything between 0 and 10? There is. We talked before, it was 5. So again, it has to be 5, but I have to go all the way to the hundredths place, just like I did here. So my 5 is going to be in the hundredths, just like my numbers here went to the hundredths. I write this a little bit differently next time. Might be helpful. 0.05. Let's keep going. All right, here's the next one. This is what I want you to do. Leave space between the two numbers. So I'm writing out 0.00, skipping a line, and then 0.01. That way I can put the midpoint or the middle of those numbers between them. So again, my question is there anything between 0 and 1? There isn't. So what was the trick? We're going to add a 0. Now my numbers look like 0 and 10. What's in between 0 and 10? It was 5. This is why I wrote it like this, because I'm going to put my 5 at the very end of it, because they all went to the thousandths place. And then I'll just fill in the rest. So I have almost like a place value chart written here. So my answer, my midpoint, would be 0.005. 0.005. Another way I could read these, this would be 5, and it's in the hundredths place. I want this one to also go to the hundredths, so this would be 10 hundredths. And of course, if I don't have anything, that would be 0 hundredths. And on this one, my midpoint I'm saying is 5 thousandths. If I make this go to the thousandths place by adding a 0, this is, I keep doing that, 10 thousandths. And of course, 0 thousandths. Seeming right. In between 0 and 10 thousandths would be 5 thousandths. Let's go a little bit bigger. So 10 and 20. What's in between those numbers? I know there's 10 numbers in between here because 10 plus 10 brings me to 20. So half of 10 would be the 5. So in between is 15. Let's keep going. I'm going to tear off this page here. Oh, skip the page. Let's get numbers larger. So before we were doing between 10 and 20, now we're going between 1 and 2. So I'm going to do the same thing. Here's my 1. I'm going to add the decimal. Here's my 2. Skip the space in between. Is there anything between 1 and 2? Nope. So let's add a place value. Now I have 10 tenths and 20 tenths. What's in between 10 and 20? 15. And look how I kept that decimal lined up, staying the same place. So my 10, 15, then 20. So this would be 1.5 is in between those. Keep going. Now I have 1/10 and 2/10. Is there anything between 1 and 2? Nope. Add a 0. Is there anything now between 10 and 20? There is. We talked before it was 15. I'm putting my 15 right where that 10 and 20 is. And then filling in the rest. 0.15. All right, I want you to try this one. So write it out, 0.01. Put a space so you can write another in between, 0.02. So the questions you're thinking to yourself, is there anything between 1 and 2? If not, try adding a place value. Why don't you try stop for a second, pause the video, and see if you can figure out what's in between 100th and 200ths. Okay, did you finish solving? If not, pause the video now, please. There's nothing between 1 and 2, so I take it out another place value. Is there anything between 10 and 20? 15. So I'm writing 15 right where 10 and 20 were lined up. There's going to be no tenths, no ones. So your answer on this one should be 0.015 or 15 thousandths is in between. I could write this as 10 thousandths and 20 thousandths. It's getting a little bit easier. I know this is tough. You guys are doing great. Only a few more. Ooh, another one. 7/10 and 71/100. Let's try this one together. Write out your 7/10. Now skip a space, leave some room, and write out 71 hundredths. It's hard to compare these two numbers because they're in different place values. So let's even them up. I'm going to add a 0 in the hundredths place next to my 7/10. So now they're both going 2 spaces past the decimal. Now it's 70 and 71. Is there anything between 70 and 71? There isn't. This is where we add the 0 again. Now I have 700 and 710. What's in between those? I could count up if I need to. 700, 701, 702, 703, 704, 705, 706, 707, 708, 709, 710. So there's 10 numbers in between there. What's halfway between 10? Think. 705 would be halfway in between. Adding my decimal and my 0 placeholder for the ones. So in between 7/10 and 71 hundredths is 705 thousandths. Great job. I think 2 more. Now we're between 9 and 10. Do the same thing. Write out your 9. Write out your 10. Is there anything between those two? Nope. Trick with these ones, you can't just add a 0. Because is 9 the same thing as 90? And is 10 the same thing as 100? Nope. We need to add a decimal also. But now we can look. What's in between 90 and 100? Think. 95 will be in between those two. 95. And I'm going to make sure my decimal stays lined up. 95. So that's 9 ones, 5 tenths. Just like that. Last one. Very similar. We're using the same numbers. I want you to give this one a shot. So let's write out 0.09. Skip a space, but I'm still lining up my 1/10. Remember, the trick is before you even get started, even them up. So my first number has 2 numbers after the decimal. My second one only has 1. So let's add a decimal here. So now here's your questions. Is there anything between 9 and 10? And if not, what do we do? All right, pause now. Take a second to solve. See if you can figure it out. Did you pause? I hope so. Okay, let's solve. There's nothing between 9 and 10, so I'm going to bring it out another place value. Is there anything between 90 and 100? There is. We talked about that before. It would be 95. Not just a normal 95. I need to fill in the rest so it matches my other numbers. Now they all have 1 number before the decimal, our tenths, our hundredths, and our thousandths place. So our midpoint would be 0.095. All right, I hope you are following along today, trying your best to think through these problems. This is not going to be the only day we do this, but this is a good introduction because we're going to start rounding next week. So if you need to, you can always look back at this video, try figuring out the midpoint, or even come up with your own problems. All right, good luck, everyone. Bye.